Go ahead and judge me, but answer one question first. If a man lets everyone use him, why is his wife cruel for saying what the room can already see? I did not make Elliot weak. I only stopped pretending his errands and quiet little nods counted as strength. When I told my beautiful single friend she could have him, I meant it as a joke and a kindness. He repeated the words back to me, slow and exact, the way he always did when he needed an order twice. By the end of my birthday, I was sure Layla would see why no woman like her would ever want my husband. My name is Paloma Reed. I was 33, and I ran operations for a private clinic where small mistakes became expensive before lunch. My staff said I could organize rain if somebody gave me a clipboard. Of course, they meant it as praise. I knew which nurse needed an early shift, which supplier lied about delivery times, and which doctor would forget a meeting unless I stood in his doorway. Elliot and I had been together 10 years and married 7. He was a structural engineer with a flexible schedule and a habit of solving problems before anyone asked. The first apartment we rented had bad pipes and one bedroom window that would not close. We bought a packet of cream index cards and wrote one job on each card. Fix the window, call the plumber, find a table that did not shake. At the bottom, we added one thank you. That part had been Elliot's idea. He said work felt lighter when the other person knew it had been seen. For nearly a year, I kept every card in a blue bowl by the door. 2 jobs. 2 thank yous. 1 home slowly becoming ours. By the time I became clinic operations manager, the thank yous had disappeared. The cards stayed. The afternoon my joke began, our clinic atrium smelled of floor polish and the white lilies left from a donor reception. Morgan Price, my senior scheduler and oldest work friend, was counting unopened wine bottles. Layla Haddad stood near the glass doors with 2 garment bags, a box of museum brochures, and the calm face she wore when other people were sweating. Layla was beautiful without asking the room to confirm it. Dark hair, straight back, quiet green coat. Men moved out of her way and then looked pleased with themselves for doing it. She had been single since ending an engagement the year before, and she never explained the ending beyond saying she had grown tired of asking permission to breathe. Elliot came to collect me after his site visit. He loosened his tie, picked up the heaviest box, and asked what still needed doing. I handed him a cream card. Take the donor signs to storage. Put the wine in my car. Carry Layla's things downstairs. Drive Layla home. 4 jobs. No thank you. My husband read the card and repeated the last instruction. He asked whether I wanted him to drive Layla to her apartment before bringing my car back. I told him that was exactly what the card said. Morgan laughed and said Elliot was the only husband she knew who came with written controls. I called him my safest employee. Layla looked at me, not him. She asked if I always spoke about my husband that way. I said someone had to keep him useful. Then I told her she could borrow him whenever she needed practical help because, as a man, he was mostly decoration. Morgan laughed again. A receptionist near the desk stopped stacking glasses. Elliot did not defend himself. He repeated the route once more, folded the card in half, and slipped it into his coat pocket. I read that as obedience. What else was it supposed to be? He carried Layla's bags into the rain while I finished the count. 4 jobs completed. 1 husband waiting by the curb. My life worked because I knew where everyone belonged. Layla's apartment was in an old brick building above a bakery. The shelves in her study had begun pulling away from the wall, and the building manager told her to stop putting books on them. I volunteered Elliot before she finished describing the problem. He was sitting beside me at a cafe table when I did it. The place smelled of burnt sugar and wet coats. Morgan was across from us, stirring foam into her coffee and listening with the bright face she used when she expected me to say something sharp. Layla said she could hire someone. I told her not to waste money when my husband spent Saturdays searching for things to fix. Elliot asked if I wanted him to inspect the shelves. There was that repetition again. I said yes. My husband asked me to put the address and time in our 3-person chat so nobody got confused. Morgan covered a laugh with her cup. She said he handled a loose shelf like a government contract. To be fair, I liked how small he looked beside Layla. She was composed and polished. Elliot had dust on one sleeve from a site visit and a pen mark near his thumb. Nobody would have placed them together unless I did it first. That made the whole idea feel safe. My father had taught me what happened when women ignored beautiful friends. I was 15 when he left my mother for the woman who sat beside her at church fundraisers. That woman had brought soup when my mother was sick. She knew where we kept the spare key. Afterward, my mother stopped wearing lipstick and started saying that useful women were easy to leave because everybody missed the work before they missed the woman. I hated the sentence. I built my life around proving it wrong. Layla could stand beside my husband all day. She could take his rides and his careful little repairs. If I was the one arranging it, nobody was replacing me. I was proving there was nothing to steal. The following Saturday, I went with Elliot to Layla's apartment. Morgan made every ugly thought sound harmless if she smiled first. Layla had cleared the study. Elliot checked the brick behind the plaster, measured the shelf brackets, and called the building manager. The man came upstairs annoyed. 10 minutes later, he was asking Elliot what type of anchor he would use and writing down the product number. I told myself men respected tools, not men. Elliot worked for 2 hours. He kept the study door open. When Layla sent him a private message asking whether he needed lunch, he answered in the group chat and included me. He asked if we wanted sandwiches after he finished. I saw the message while shopping with Morgan. One private question. One public reply. My husband needed supervision. Morgan said I had trained him well. I agreed. Elliot replied only with the size of the screws he still needed. That evening, I told him to cook because Layla had helped with the shelves. He asked whether I meant at our house or hers. I said our house. He repeated it back. Dinner at our house. Layla invited by me. The words irritated me. I asked why he had started talking like a calendar notification. My husband said he wanted to be clear about what I was asking him to do. His voice was soft. He reminded me that I had called him my employee in the clinic atrium and volunteered his Saturday without checking. What he meant was that I had embarrassed him. What I heard was a man complaining after doing exactly what he was built to do. I told him couples helped each other's friends. He asked why help always seemed to begin with me offering his time and end with everyone laughing at him. I said the doormat word had been Morgan's, not mine. That was not true. Morgan had called him trained. I had called him a doormat in a voice note 2 nights earlier, and Elliot had heard it through the bathroom door. I changed one detail because the larger point was still mine. He asked if I thought he was weak. I told him weakness was not an insult if a person chose it. Then I kissed his cheek and asked him not to make Layla uncomfortable by sulking through dinner. The meal was lemon chicken from a card written in Elliot's father's narrow handwriting. His father had died before our wedding, and Elliot kept the recipe in a plastic sleeve behind the cream task cards. Layla asked where it came from. He told her about learning to cook at 12 because his father worked nights. She listened. That was all. When Elliot finished, Layla thanked him for the shelves and the meal. She said his work at the apartment had made her feel safe about putting the books back. Nobody had used that word for his care in a long time. Safe. I made a joke before the table could hold it. I said Layla could have him because he came with repair skills and a decent chicken recipe. As a man, I added, she should keep her expectations low. Morgan laughed through the speaker on my phone. I had called her after dessert so she could hear the review. Layla did not. Elliot gathered the plates. Before he carried them away, he asked whether I wanted him to drive Layla home too. I counted the glasses because his face had become hard to read. 3 water glasses. 1 wine glass. 2 people refusing to laugh. Of course, I said yes. He put the instruction in the group chat before reaching for his keys. Over the next month, Layla's name appeared in that chat 11 times. A ride after a late museum meeting. 2 boxes carried from her office. A lamp fixed. 1 grocery stop when her car battery died. Every request began with me. Every answer from Elliot included me. I saw a man waiting for permission. Layla began seeing something else. The first time she defended him, we were having brunch near the clinic. Morgan was describing her boyfriend's refusal to build a wardrobe, and I said some women needed demanding men while I preferred one who came when called. Layla set down her fork and said reliability was not the same as obedience. I told her single women always admired husbands from a safe distance. Elliot heard about that exchange that night. He asked one specific question while we stood in the hallway. He wanted to know why I kept offering him to Layla. I said I did it because the idea was impossible. He asked what made it impossible. My answer came too quickly. I said a woman like Layla would never choose a man who needed a list to cross a room. My husband looked at the cream card in his hand. He had been checking my errands for the next morning. Instead of folding it, he placed it flat on the hall table. Something about that careful movement annoyed me. I picked up the card and added one more job. Confirm Layla's seat for the Heritage Trust dinner. By then, I had already decided who would sit beside her. The Heritage Trust dinner took place inside the old Central Station, under a clock that had stopped at 9:14 years before. The building smelled of rain, wool coats, and metal warmed by hanging lights. Layla's museum was receiving a preservation grant. My clinic had bought a sponsor table, which meant I had a guest list to control. Elliot was supposed to sit beside me. 2 days before the dinner, Layla told me her date had cancelled. She did not ask for my husband. She said she was ready to attend alone. That would have been sensible, but it would not have proved anything. I changed the seating chart. Elliot asked why his name was now beside Layla's. We were in the clinic staff lounge, where Morgan and 2 nurses could hear us. I said Layla needed someone steady, and he needed practice being useful outside the house. My husband repeated the arrangement. He would arrive with me, escort Layla through the sponsor line, sit beside her during dinner, and drive her home if I stayed late with the clinic team. 4 instructions. He said each one plainly. I slipped the cream card into his jacket pocket in front of Morgan. Then I told Layla that standing beside her might teach him how a real man carried himself around an important woman. One nurse stared into the refrigerator. Morgan laughed, but the sound was shorter than usual. Layla told me to stop. I smiled because anger would have made her look involved. I said Elliot knew I was joking. My husband looked at me, then asked Layla if she was comfortable with the arrangement. That question belonged to her, not me. I did not like it. Layla said she would accept the escort if Elliot wanted to attend, but she would arrange her own ride home. He thanked her and turned back to me. He asked whether I still wanted the seating changed. I said yes. Of course I did. Reversing it would have made the room think I was jealous. At the station, Elliot wore the dark suit I had chosen. I expected him to disappear beside Layla. Instead, people kept stopping him. The building's project director knew his firm. A city inspector remembered a report Elliot had written on the roof supports. One of Layla's trustees asked him about the cracked stone above the east entrance, and my husband explained the repair in language anyone could follow. He did not brag. He did not chase attention. It came to him and stayed. Layla watched his face while he spoke. I told myself she was relieved to have a free consultant. During the sponsor photographs, the organizer asked Layla and Elliot to stand beneath the old clock. I stepped into the frame and said my husband was on loan for the evening. Then I told Layla she should practice with him, because maybe he would learn to behave like a man beside her. The photographer lowered his camera. Someone near the ticket desk gave a small laugh. Morgan laughed too, then looked at Elliot and stopped. My husband did not move away from Layla. He took the cream card from his pocket and read the second line. Escort Layla through the sponsor photographs. He asked if that was still what I wanted. Short. Calm. Exact. I heard surrender. The people around us heard something I refused to name. Layla said she did not need an escort if the price was his dignity. Elliot folded the card once and told her the price belonged to the person who wrote it. It was the closest he came to challenging me all evening. I laughed and guided everyone toward the dining hall. My clinic director, Dr. Nora Chen, stayed behind for a few seconds. She looked at Elliot, then at the card in his hand. Nora missed nothing at work and forgave very little in public. I assumed she was worried about the sponsor schedule. At dinner, Elliot and Layla talked about the station roof. They also talked about her broken engagement. I could hear only pieces, but Layla did not lower her voice or lean close. Elliot told her that a person could be useful and still need the right to say no. She answered that a person could leave before anyone gave permission. I cut in and said they sounded like a support group for people injured by my efficiency. Layla asked whether I ever heard myself. Morgan stared at her plate. Nora set down her knife. I raised my glass and said my husband had finally found a woman willing to treat his chores like a personality. That earned 2 uncomfortable smiles. I counted them as laughter. 2 smiles. 6 silent faces. One husband smoothing the folded card between his fingers. The dinner moved on because paid events always move on. Layla accepted the grant. Nora thanked the trustees. The old clock stayed at 9:14 while every phone beneath it showed a later hour. Afterward, Elliot found me near the coat check. He asked why I needed people to laugh at him before I could relax. It was a better question than I wanted from him. I told him I managed pressure with humor. He said humor usually had more than one person enjoying it. I accused him of performing sadness because Layla had given him an audience. My husband did not raise his voice. He said Layla had done one thing I had stopped doing. She asked whether he wanted the help I kept assigning. For half a second, the coat check room went quiet enough for me to hear rain against the high windows. Elliot looked tired. Not strategic. Not cold. Just tired in the same way my mother used to look after my father left, when every useful thing in the house still worked and none of it mattered. The thought touched the wrong place. Then Layla came over with her coat already buttoned. She thanked Elliot and said she had ordered a car. I saw relief cross his face. He had wanted one evening without another duty. I turned that relief into weakness before it could become anything else. I said my husband was grateful because driving confident women made him nervous. Layla did not answer me. She asked Elliot to send her a photograph of the cream card in the group chat because she wanted a record of who had arranged the evening. I told myself she was protecting her reputation. Elliot took the photograph. My hand was visible at the edge of it, resting on the coat desk beside the pen I had used. The photograph sat in our shared chat before midnight, with no private version for me to rewrite. I saw only a woman making sure nobody thought she wanted my husband. Layla came to our house the next Sunday with the cream card inside a clear document sleeve. She placed it on the dining table and told me the joke had ended for her. The morning light made every line visible. Escort Layla. Carry her coat. Sit beside her. Take her home if needed. My handwriting. My initials at the bottom, the little habit I used on clinic task sheets. I asked why she had brought it back like evidence. Layla said because I kept turning my choices into accidents. She had checked the group chat from the beginning. Every ride, repair, meal, and invitation had come from me. Elliot had never contacted her privately, except to redirect a message back into the group. My beautiful friend was clearing her name before anyone had accused her. That was how I read it. I told her the effort looked guilty. Elliot stood by the window. He had a mug in both hands and the same quiet face he wore when contractors argued with him. I asked if he had helped Layla prepare this little presentation. He repeated my question before answering. Had he helped her build a case against me? Then he said no. He had only stopped deleting things that hurt to read. The room shifted by less than an inch. Layla said she had laughed the first few times because she did not want to look severe. She had accepted his help because I made refusal feel rude. That was her part, and she was ashamed of it. Then she looked at Elliot and apologized to him, not to me. Her apology made me furious because it treated my husband like someone whose opinion could change the room. I told her she was confusing gratitude with attraction. Layla's face closed. She said attraction was not the subject. Respect was. Elliot lowered his mug. My husband said he had spent years believing that doing more would make the jokes stop. When I called him useful, he cooked. When I called him weak, he carried more. When I offered his time, he agreed because conflict made him feel as if the marriage itself might break. He did not dress that habit up as patience or kindness. He said yes when he meant no. Then he punished both of us with silence. I seized that part because it belonged to me. I told him his agreement had been dishonest. He had trained me to believe every task was fine and then stored resentment behind a calm face. A wife could not respect a boundary a husband refused to state. Elliot said I was right. No argument. No correction. The answer should have softened me. Instead, it felt like he had taken my best defense and placed it somewhere I could not reach. Layla left after that. At the door, she told Elliot she would not ask him for another favor. She also said that if he ever needed someone to confirm the order of events, the full group chat would stay on her phone. I heard the word witness and laughed. I asked if they planned to put my marriage on trial. Neither of them laughed back. 2 days later, Dr. Nora Chen asked me into her office. A video from the station had reached her. It showed me slipping the task card into Elliot's pocket and telling Layla he might learn how to act like a man. Nora had received the original file from the event photographer because the clinic logo was visible behind us. She asked me to stop using clinic events for private humiliation. I told her my marriage was not an operations issue. Nora said it became one when staff and donors had to decide whether to laugh. I had never counted Nora as someone who might trust Elliot's version over mine. She did not know him well. She did not need to. She had watched the original clip and trusted what it showed. At home that night, Elliot sat at the dining table with his laptop open. A folder on the screen was named by dates. Atrium. Apartment. Dinner. Station. I asked if he was cataloguing his suffering now. My husband said he was keeping the order straight. The pieces sat close together. The shared chats. The card photograph. The uncut video. His habit of repeating my instructions until they belonged clearly to the person who gave them. For one clean second, the folder did not look like a threat. It looked like a boundary with dates on it, built by someone who no longer trusted my version of small things. The thought had not fully formed before I rejected it. On the shelf behind him sat the blue bowl from our first apartment. Elliot had taken it out of the hall cupboard while looking for a spare key. Several old cream cards were inside, bent at the corners and soft from being handled. He picked up one from the year we got married. The job on the front was to fix the bedroom window before winter. At the bottom, in my handwriting, I had thanked him for making a bad apartment feel chosen. My husband read that line twice. He asked when the thank yous had stopped. I said adults should not need praise for ordinary work. He said he had not wanted praise. He had wanted a wife who still knew the difference between asking and assigning. There was no control in his face then. Only a plain sadness that made the old bowl look foolish between us. I could have sat down. I could have admitted that thanking him had begun to feel dangerous, as if gratitude meant dependence and dependence meant becoming my mother. Instead, I told him nostalgia was another way quiet men avoided the present. Elliot returned the card to the bowl. He did it carefully, which let me call the whole scene a performance. I shut his laptop and told him frightened men collected proof because they could not hold a room with their own voice. He looked at my hand on the lid and asked me to move it. I did, but only because Layla had messaged our group chat. She wrote that she was leaving the conversation and would keep the history unchanged. Then her name disappeared from the member list. 3 people became 2. Of course, I told myself she wanted Elliot to chase her. He did not. That was what annoyed me most. For the next 3 weeks, my husband stopped rescuing me from small consequences. He no longer refilled my car when the fuel light came on. He did not remind me that the clinic laundry contract needed renewing. When I left a parcel on the hall table for 2 days, it remained there. Nothing dramatic happened. My life simply began requiring my attention. I decided my birthday would restore the proper order. I booked a covered pavilion beside the river for my 34th birthday. The place had cedar posts, canvas, walls, and heaters that clicked whenever the wind came off the water. It was not a clinic event, so Nora could not lecture me about sponsors. It was mine. 30 guests, 6 tables, 1 husband who knew how to keep food warm. Before I sent the final invitations, I called Layla. I used the softer voice I saved for patients who threatened to complain. I told her the station dinner had become more personal than I intended. I did not apologize. An apology would have made her the judge. Layla asked whether Elliot would attend my birthday as a guest or as unpaid staff. I said he liked being useful and that nobody was forcing him. She asked the question again. That time, I promised he would sit beside me for dinner. I also promised not to mention her being single, not to offer her my husband, and not to turn the two of them into entertainment. 3 promises. Easy ones, I thought. Layla accepted only after I said Elliot knew about the invitation. Her caution pleased me. It proved she understood how dangerous the appearance of interest could be. Morgan reacted to the updated guest list with one short message saying that getting Layla into the room was brave. Months earlier, she would have called it brilliant and sent a voice note. I treated the missing enthusiasm as nerves. People often became careful right before a memorable party. I made a new cream card. Collect the cake. Check the heaters. Carry gifts to the side room. Refill drinks. Take Layla home. The last line was partly habit. Layla lived across town, and I had invited her before our argument. She accepted because, according to her, avoiding me would make the story look dirtier than it was. Elliot read the card at our hallway table. His work bag was near the door, packed more neatly than usual. I assumed he had an early site visit the next morning. He repeated each job. When he reached the last line, he asked whether I still wanted him to take Layla home. I said yes. Then I added that he should be grateful. I trusted him with someone that beautiful. My husband asked me to put the list in the birthday group chat. He said he would do exactly what I had requested and nothing beyond it. I took that as final acceptance. I photographed the card and posted it. Morgan reacted with a laughing face after 9 minutes. Months earlier, she would have answered in 9 seconds. At the pavilion the next afternoon, the cake had not arrived. I called Elliot and asked why he had not warned me. He said the card told him to collect it at 5 and it was only 4:20. I told him he knew the bakery closed early on Saturdays. He said that was exactly why he had confirmed the time in the chat the night before. The bakery had corrected me. I had ignored the message. My husband did not fix the mistake before it existed. I had to call, apologize, and pay a rush fee. It felt like sabotage because competence had always arrived before I noticed needing it. Elliot came at 5 with the cake level in its box. He placed it on the service table and asked if we could speak outside. The river smelled of mud and cold leaves. Boats knocked softly against the dock below us. He said this was his final offer. If I introduced him as my husband, removed Layla from the joke, and stopped treating service as the price of staying married, he would finish the evening beside me. After the guests left, we could have one honest conversation with no audience. He did not beg or promise that the marriage would survive. He left one door open. I gave him the accusation he could not deny. I said his endless agreement had been a lie. He let me build a marriage around yes while he hid a private no. Then he expected me to respect limits he had never defended. Elliot looked toward the river. He said that was fair. Of course, the simple answer made me crueler. I told him a stronger man would have corrected me years earlier. A stronger man would not need my beautiful friend to teach him self-respect. I said he wanted to leave now only because Layla had made weakness feel noble. My husband repeated the last sentence. I took that as proof it had hurt. He asked once more whether I would change the card. I said no. He folded it and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket. Morgan was supposed to arrive early and help with place cards. At 5:30, her chair was empty. I sent one message, then another. The third stayed unread. That was all. No excuse. No argument. A blank screen where her laugh usually appeared. Layla arrived alone in a dark blue dress and brought no gift. She greeted Elliot first, but from a full step away. I saw the distance and called it performance. Nora came with her wife. 2 clinic nurses arrived together. The event photographer from the station was there because Morgan had booked him before disappearing. More witnesses than I expected, but witnesses had always made me better. I pinned the task card to the service board beside the drinks. Staff. Elliot, I wrote above it. One of the nurses read the words and looked away. My husband served the first tray without complaint. He checked the heaters. He carried the gifts. Each time he finished a task, he returned to the card and touched the next line with one finger. I watched him and felt the room becoming mine again. At 7, I posted a short video of him carrying plates. I wrote that some women got flowers for their birthdays and I got trained help. The first reaction came from a distant cousin. Morgan did not appear. Layla asked me to take it down. Quietly. Privately. I told her she was protecting a man who had not asked to be protected. She said he had asked many times, only without making a spectacle. That was when I chose the final scene. I would make the joke in front of everyone. Layla would deny wanting him. Elliot would keep serving. The room would understand that I controlled both sides. By the time candles were placed on the cake, I was certain the marriage had returned to its proper shape. My husband stood beside the serving table with the cream card in his pocket. I thought it was proof that he had accepted his place. The photographer asked everyone to move closer to the cake. River light pressed against the canvas walls, and the heaters clicked over the sound of plates being cleared. Elliot carried the final tray to our table. Layla watched him set it down. I thanked the guests for coming. Then I thanked my husband for proving that every good party needed someone willing to do the dull work. Layla told me to stop. The room gave me nothing. No laugh. No rescue. I smiled at my beautiful friend and said she could take him. I added that I would need a better man soon anyway. Elliot repeated the instruction in the same steady voice he had used in the clinic atrium. I wanted him to take Layla home. Then he placed the tray on the service table. He removed his wedding ring and set it beside my cake. From his jacket, he took the cream card and a thin envelope. His fingertip rested on the photograph I had posted in the group chat, with my handwriting clear from top to bottom. My hand stayed around the cake knife. Frosting gathered against the blade while he named the order of things already on the page. I had sent him to Layla's apartment. I had invited her to our dinners. I had seated them together at the station. I had ordered him to escort her. I had written the final ride on the task card for my birthday. The private messages I kept suggesting did not exist. Layla's group chat showed that. The videos showed my jokes before she defended him. Nora had the original station file. Every date came before Elliot ever asked Layla for anything. The record had one purpose: keeping the order of events safe from me. I tried to say Layla had encouraged him. Nora answered that every instruction she had seen came from my own hand or my own voice. Nora's answer was flat and impossible to bend. Of course, I counted the faces that would not meet mine. 8 at the nearest table. None on my side. Elliot said I had called him a doormat for years. Layla had been the first person to remind him that being pushed to the floor did not mean he had to stay there. The copy beneath his ring was a filed petition for dissolution with the date of the first case conference. I set the knife down. It left a white line across the tablecloth. Layla put on her coat. She said she was not taking anyone. She was leaving beside a man who had already chosen to leave. She did not touch him. Elliot picked up his work bag from behind the service board and held the pavilion door for her. I looked for Morgan. Her chair had never been used. Elliot drove Layla home because I had written it on the card, then continued to the 2-room apartment he had rented near the river. I remained in our townhouse for 3 weeks before moving into a furnished flat above a pharmacy. The shared accounts covered only household bills until our balances were separated. Morgan stopped answering, and Nora spoke to me only about clinic schedules. 9 months later, after the divorce was final, Elliot and Layla went to dinner for the first time and posted one photograph with the date visible. The clinic removed me from donor events after the pavilion video reached 2 board members. I still believe Elliot made agreement too easy and honesty too late. I still believe Layla enjoyed being the first person whose respect he accepted. But neither belief changes the order. I called service weakness and wrote every invitation. Control had always felt safer than gratitude. When I accused another woman of stealing my husband, everyone already had the receipt. The cream card remained beside the cake, marked by one streak of white frosting. The last line said, "Take Leela home," in my own block letters.